you. John, with the budget problems that we face throughout the state, not only just in Albany, but how it goes down to the counties and towns and school districts, how do we prepare our students, our young people, for the 21st century jobs if we have to cut education and we have to cut infrastructure? Jen?
Well, I think that the problems with education lie with the bloated, well, let me withdraw that. I think that with respect to education, we spend a lot of money on education, and the education our students are getting is mediocre. The New York State spends, I think, the second highest or the third highest with respect to each individual student in the state. We spend the most on our students per capita. But our students, what's bothersome is that our students are performing below the national average. And I read an article today in the paper that our testing scores have even gotten worse with respect to our students in schools. I think that we need to bolster math and sciences. We need to get qualified teachers that are really well trained to teach students in certain subjects that are going to be very beneficial to our students in the future, and that would be math, science, are two that come to mind. I think that we could eliminate a lot of the wasteful spending with respect to education that drags our students and teachers down. We could come up with mechanisms by which school districts could merge the districts within the towns. Certainly not a one-size-fits-all recipe, but something that would give them incentives to share superintendents so that more money could be funneled into finding good quality teachers and providing programs to students that will make them well prepared for future job, employment, taxes, science. Getting into good colleges is everything. I went to Georgetown University and I had a great high school education. And education is everything. My grandparents were immigrants and they always emphasized that to us. So, out of time, sorry.
Thank you, John. That's a great question. I think what we're talking about here are two issues. We're really talking about cost of education and also quality of education. I've really, speaking of education, I've gotten an education on education the last few years. My wife, Karen, is an elementary school teacher. And I've learned a lot about the educational system, the budgeting of the educational system, just secondhand in terms of paying attention. I think the issue becomes, certainly, I think we spend too much on education. New York State, and I looked it up this morning just to be 100% sure because I want to make sure I have my facts straight. New York State spends more per pupil than any other state in the nation. The District of Columbia actually spends more, but of the 50 states, New York State spends more per pupil on education. And the Times Union today, there was a report released by the New York State Education Department that barely over half of all students in grades 3 through 8 are proficient in math and English. So by any way you look at it, we're spending a lot of money on education, but we're not getting our money's worth at the end of the day. So you have to say, well, what are we doing wrong here? Well, I think we're focusing too much on infrastructure, school infrastructure. Is the money actually getting to the classrooms? And what are our policies in terms of teacher preparation and development? We talk about getting quality teachers. Well, how are we defining quality teachers? Teachers with a master's degree? That doesn't necessarily mean a teacher is a qualified teacher. We both have law degrees. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're qualified attorneys as compared to someone else. Although I'm sorry? So, I think the issue becomes, again, how are we spending the money? People respond to incentives, good, bad, or otherwise. And I'd like to see a system where we provide incentives to school districts to spend their money wisely and incentives to teachers to see real growth. All right? I think when you have a system whereby a teacher achieves tenure after 3 years, and regardless of how well his or her students do, there's no opportunity for advancement or any sort of incentive afterwards, how much do you necessarily expect from that teacher? Thank you.